Super creative.
The DJI Mavic Mini won't do HDR or panorama, but you can if you're willing to get super creative. I'm Rob Lyons, this is Super Creative, and today, together, you and I are going to transcend limitations of the Mavic Mini. Now, there's no question that the Mavic Mini is an amazing little drone, but it's intended for consumers, so there's no pro features that we might be used to in their higher end drones. First thing, it only shoots JPEG. There's no RAW on this drone. Second, no HDR, so we're going to have to manually bracket our exposures by changing the shutter speed. And third, there's no panorama. Now, if you're like me, I prefer to shoot wider images from a drone because I'm seeing these sweeping cityscapes or vistas, and also the 12 megapixel camera doesn't leave a lot of room for cropping. So by shooting multiple images, stitching them together in post, we'll have a much bigger picture to deal with, and it'll give us a lot more options for editing. First things first, let's put this bird up in the sky, get some images, and get to work.
The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
All right. I think this scene's gonna work out. I've never flown from this park before, but on the map it looked like it'd probably be a pretty good perspective of the city that I don't see a lot. So I'm hoping we'll get a nice unique shot here. Just moving into position. Now, I'll give you the first tip here, is that I like to shoot my cities in the morning. I don't do them at night. I know my shots look like they're night shots, but I go out just before the sunrise, and I do that because there's way less people around. And I just find it a lot more peaceful to fly the drone without some person, bothering me, either thinking it's really cool or thinking it's really awful that I'm doing this. So I go out first thing in the morning. I wear black, people keep their distance, it's great. So that's my first tip. So let's go ahead and throw it into photo mode. Now you can see at the bottom right that my ISO is 100 and my shutter speed is 3. Always keep your ISO at 100. That's the base ISO, and it's going to give you the least amount of noise in your image. Very important. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and take our first image, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pan the drone over and take another image. And it's just like you would do this on a tripod. We're going to pan over, take an image, pan over, take an image, pan over, take an image, until we've captured our entire cityscape. This is exactly what you would do in still photography on a tripod. Take your photo, pan over, take a photo. And we're just doing it with a drone. Now, because of the GPS lock, this drone is extremely stable, and we can do 3-second exposures, and we can do these panos, and it stays locked in the same position. We're gonna take another photo, and we're gonna continue to keep panning the camera and taking images until we've got the entire cityscape captured. So let's just kind of fast forward for a second. We've panned across our scene. I think I'll just do one more. Let's take one more shot. There we go. Now here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change my shutter speed now. And let's go down to 2. I like 2. Okay, so we're gonna do the exact same thing we just did, but we're gonna go back across the frame in the other direction, now at a 2-second shutter speed. Okay, so I think you're getting the whole take a photo, pan the camera, take a photo technique. So while we're here on the second pass, I'll explain why I do it this way instead of traditional HDR, which every single photo we take, we would adjust the shutter speed and take 3 images. And the reason why I do it this way, I shoot the whole panorama and then change my shutter speed, is that it's a lot more efficient. I can quickly move across a frame, take the images, adjust my shutter speed, and then go back across the frame. So 3 quick passes across the frame, and I've gotten a 3-bracket panoramic image. And it just makes it so much more efficient. The last thing I want to do is spend a lot of time with a drone in the air. People hate drones here where I live, so I like to get in, get out as quickly as possible. I don't have to explain the law to them and show them my license and blah, 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 blah. They never understand anyway. They think I'm invading their privacy. For some reason, people think like I'm there just to shoot them from the sky or something. People are nuts, man. So just get in, get out, make it as easy on yourself as possible. And this is quick and efficient way to do it. Okay, so we're going to drop our shutter speed down to 1 second now, and this is to make sure our highlights aren't blown out. Now, you totally get what we're doing here. We're taking a shot, panning, taking a shot, so we'll just fast forward to the end and call it a day on this. So it's Canada, it's winter, it's freezing, I want to go home. So I think 3 brackets will do it for today. Now you could do 4 or 5 brackets at different shutter speeds. So you would shoot panoramas at 2 additional shutter speeds, but I think we've got what we need for this image. And I can't feel my fingers anymore. So let's go ahead and just grab a video shot or 2, bring this thing down, and we'll head over to the studio and I'll show you how I edit these things. All right, so mission success. We're back home, we got the goods, we got some tea, we're caffeinated, we're ready to edit. Let's do this. This is the fun part. So let's jump into Lightroom and get our images ready to go here. All right, here we are in Lightroom. I'm gonna take a look at this first image here. A little dark, doesn't even look that sharp, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, so up here in the top right, we're gonna see that this is our 3-second exposure. So I am going to cruise across these files until I find the last of the 3-second exposures. Now I took about 15 shots, I think, in the pano. So this looks like we're getting closer to the end of our scene. Yeah, it drops down to 2 seconds there. So there's 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Okay, so that's the last one. So we're gonna highlight all the way back here. We're gonna right click and we're gonna say Photo Merge Panorama. So this is the moment where you just sweat a little bit and pray that everything worked the way you wanted it to. Oh, will you look at that? Nice little panorama. Okay, so it has auto crop on. I think we're gonna leave that on. I don't really mess with boundary warp. You will get a little bit more out of your image, but it does warp it. So, you know, I don't mind that. But today, we're gonna leave that off. So 19 images, go ahead and hit merge on that. All right, so we're gonna go to our next panorama here. Now this is 114, and I can actually see it right here in the thumbnails that 128 is gonna be our last 2-second exposure, because it gets a little darker on this one, and you can see up in the top right that it's showing us that that's a 1-second exposure. So let's go ahead and go from 114 to 128, and we're just gonna repeat the same process we did, and we're gonna photo merge it to a panorama. Okay, so that's our preview for the second panorama. Same thing, I'm just gonna auto crop it. I'm not gonna do anything with the boundary warp, and we'll go ahead and click merge. Boom, second panorama, looking epic. How sick does this thing look already? Haven't even done any editing. This thing is fire. Okay, let's tee up this third one. You know the routine at this point. Select them, merge them. Here we go. Booyakasha. Third panorama. Now look how dark this one looks. This is dark because we did 1-second exposures, but if you look at our highlights in these areas here, down in here, much better controlled, so they're not gonna blow out. Now, BC Place Stadium here, it's notorious for blowing out. It's very bright. It's got some huge lights, so it's pretty hard. Same with the Cirque du Soleil. Their lights and their white tint usually blows out. So this is looking pretty good. That's exactly what I wanted. So we're gonna go ahead and merge it. Okay, good news. Here is our third panorama. Okay, here comes the fun part. We're gonna select the 3 panoramas that we made. So I'm on a Mac. I'm gonna use the command button and I'm gonna command click these 3 panos. Then I'm gonna right click, photo merge. Now we're gonna do HDR instead of panorama this time. And let's see what happens. All right, so here's our preview. It does not look too great. Now you can click auto settings. Obviously it looks a lot better. And that actually might be a pretty good starting point. I don't know. We're gonna not do that. All right, my friends, moment of truth. We're gonna click on our pano. First thing I wanna do is play with the cropping here, because that's a bit wonky. Let's bring this down. And yeah, about there. Bring this guy in a little bit, yeah. Okay. Great starting place. So our image is super dark. First things first, let's bring up our exposure. Now, we don't want to go too far. Let's bring it up about, 2 stops. Let's bring it up 1.6. Let's take our highlights down. Let's get these shadows up. Looking a little better. It already looks maybe a little too saturated. Bring that down a little bit. Maybe we'll bring up our vibrance, maybe we won't. Gonna leave our profile as is. You can try auto on the white balance. It made it a little warmer. I don't know if I like it better or not. Now I see the sky's a wee bit funky. I can see a tear here. Do you see that? You can see a tear, and that's just an artifact from creating our HDR panorama. You can see it's a little bit funky here. A little bit funky there. And over here it looks, look, see, we have another tear. So what are we gonna do? We're just gonna crop those tears out because that is the easiest solution. And sometimes the easiest solution is the best solution. All right, that's pretty good, that's pretty good. Now, I think the sky's too bright and too blue, so why don't we just bring that down with a gradient tool? Lots of ways you can do this, but I'm lazy. Gotta wrap this tutorial up, right? So we'll just bring our exposure down a bit, maybe a bit more. Oh yeah, there we go. Now it looks a little more like a nice night scene, and it's kind of hidden that artifact quite nicely. Let's give it maybe a little bit more. Yeah, we'll just give it a little fade so the buildings don't get lost. Yeah, somewhere in there. Okay, I'm kind of digging that. Let's go ahead and close that. Actually, let's just take our highlights down, sometimes the shadows down. I just bring that stuff down a bit. Boom. Now I can still see it a little bit, but it's barely noticeable. Okay, a couple more adjustments here. Like I mentioned earlier, the stadium here is a little blown out. So I'm gonna bring my exposure down, I'm gonna bring my highlights down, I'm gonna bring my brush down. We're just gonna paint that down a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a little better. I think we'll just hit this little bit here. Look at that, you got some of that nice warm light came back into that image there. Oh yeah. That spot looks a little hot. That corner's looking a little hot. But otherwise, I think this turned out pretty well. All right, so there we have it, my friends. Look at this, one beautiful panorama. Now there are a few little mistakes, probably some touch-ups I'd hop over into Photoshop and do. And I might even grab the other panoramas, like the individual 1, 2, and 3 second exposures, and just kind of take them into Photoshop, and I could paint little areas in if I wanted to. But for now, I think we're gonna call this a wrap. I am completely blown away by how good this turned out. Like, had no idea it was gonna be that sick. Like, just completely mind blown. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for our HDR panorama tutorial. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. And until next time, friends, remember, you can be reactive or you can be creative. It all depends on how you choose to see.